Picture this, Donald Trump, sitting in a military cafeteria, staring at a plain brown pouch like it just fell from outer space. No gold plates, no steak dinners, no ketchup bottles in sight. Just a steaming bag of mystery food. Real military MRE. What happens next? Well, his first bite leaves soldiers crying with laughter, some even wiping away tears, and the entire room explodes into a moment nobody expected. Today, we're diving into the hilarious and surprisingly emotional story of the day Donald Trump tried a military meal for the very first time. Wait, what is this? The room froze for a second, then burst into laughter. Donald Trump, never one to hide his thoughts, was staring down at something he had clearly never seen before. A plain brown pouch. No gold plating, no crystal glass, not even a fast food wrapper. Just a dull, wrinkled bag that looked more like survival gear than lunch. Now, if you know anything about Trump, you know he has two favorite kinds of meals. Something big, fancy, and expensive, or something quick and fast, like burgers and fries. But this was neither. What he was holding in his hands was an MRE, short for meal ready to eat. For those who've never seen one, let me paint you a picture. Imagine a food kit designed not for flavor, but for survival. A package that can sit in a backpack for months, survive a sandstorm, and still somehow be edible. Inside, there's usually a main dish, a side, a dessert, maybe a cracker, some mystery peanut butter, instant coffee, and a chemical heater that looks like something out of a science experiment. Soldiers call it food. Civilians call it questionable. Trump turned the bag over like it was a mystery box on a game show. He squinted at the label. Beef stew, or is it chili? Nobody really knows. Folks, they don't make it easy. The soldiers around him laughed because they knew the truth. Half the time the label doesn't match the taste, and the other half you wish it didn't. He tapped the pouch with his finger, raising an eyebrow. Strong packaging. Very strong. You could probably build a wall out of this. More laughter. The room was filled with soldiers, men and women in uniform, used to eating this food in deserts, jungles, and war zones. But seeing Trump, former president of the United States, treat it like a strange alien object was a whole new level of comedy. Now here's the thing. Trump wasn't at Mar-a-Lago. He wasn't in a luxury hotel, and he wasn't on Air Force One. He was in a military facility, face to face with the everyday reality of soldiers. And instead of a silver spoon, he had a plastic spork. Instead of a chef presenting a gourmet plate, he had to rip open a pouch and pray the heater didn't explode. But here's what made the moment even more unexpected. Trump wasn't just going to look at it. He was actually going to eat it. He picked up the chemical heater, holding it like it was a grenade. Okay, so I pour the water in here. Are you sure this isn't going to blow up? Because if it does, folks, it'll be the biggest explosion since, well, you know. The soldiers were nearly crying with laughter, some shouting playful instructions. Don't tilt it. Keep it flat. No, don't drink the water, sir. For a man used to chef serving steak cooked exactly how he liked it. The process of preparing an MRE was a comedy routine in itself. He slipped the pouch inside the heater, tilted it up, and stared as steam began to rise. His eyes widened. It's alive. It's cooking itself. This is more high-tech than some of the hotels I've stayed in. Now, if you've ever been in a room full of soldiers, you know the humor is the glue that holds them together. They've shared these meals in the harshest conditions, sometimes with nothing else around but sand and silence. To them, an MRE is more than food. It's a reminder of long nights, long marches, and long deployments. But here, in this moment, it became something else, a comedy show. Trump held up the steaming pouch like it was a trophy. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to say, this is a very historic moment. Never before has a president, well, maybe George Washington ate something like this. But I doubt it. This is history. This is the best meal America has ever produced, and I haven't even tasted it yet. The soldiers cheered, clapped, and some even banged their fists on the table. The build-up had everyone hooked. Cameras were rolling, phones were recording, and the anticipation in the room was sky-high. Everyone wanted to see it, the exact second Trump would finally take his first bite of a real military meal. And that's when the energy shifted. Trump, holding his spork like a weapon of destiny, leaned over the pouch. His face turned serious. His eyes narrowed. The joking stopped for just a heartbeat. The soldiers leaned in, almost holding their breath. This was it, the moment everyone had been waiting for. Trump gripped a plastic spork like it was Excalibur. The pouch of steaming food sat in front of him, half open, releasing a smell that could only be described as mysterious. Was it chicken? Was it beef? Was it something from another galaxy? Nobody in the room seemed entirely sure. He leaned in, sniffed dramatically, and then pulled back with an exaggerated cough. Smells like victory. Or maybe like the inside of a locker room. Hard to say. The soldiers roared with laughter. Some were holding their phones high, recording every second, while others just wanted to see how far he would take the bit. Finally, after stretching out the suspense like a reality TV host announcing the winner, Trump scooped up a bite. He paused, holding the spork just inches from his mouth. His hand shook, but not from nerves, from pure showmanship. He wanted everyone waiting. He wanted the cameras rolling. "Okay," he said, lowering his voice. "Here we go. If this is my last meal, remember me as a hero." The room erupted again. Then he did it. The spork entered, the bite landed, and time seemed to stop. Soldiers leaned forward, eyes wide. For a brief moment, Trump's face froze in total seriousness. His lips pressed together. His eyes narrowed. He chewed slowly. Too slowly. It was like watching a judge on a cooking competition take the most dramatic bite of their career. Finally, he swallowed. And then it happened. His eyes opened wide. His eyebrows shot up. He dropped the spork on the table and gasped. "Folks," he said, pausing for effect, "I don't know what to say. This is actually not bad. Maybe the best meal I've had in years. Better than McDonald's, almost." The room exploded. Soldiers laughed so hard that some nearly fell out of their chairs. A few clapped their hands like they were at a comedy show. Others shouted playful heckles. "Wait until you try the beans." "Don't trust the cheese spread." Trump raised his hands to calm the crowd, his voice booming over the laughter. "No, really. This is very good. I think this might even be better than what they serve in some fancy restaurants. You know those places, tiny plates, no ketchup. They charge you $200 for a leaf of lettuce. Not here. Here you get value. Tremendous value." The soldiers howled. Some slapped the table. Others wiped away tears of laughter. It was like watching a stand-up routine disguised as taste test. Trump picked up the pouch again, giving it a serious nod. "Strong flavor. Stronger than I expected. Probably stronger than some world leaders I've met." The laughter grew even louder. But he wasn't done. He took another sporkful and leaned back in his chair, chewing with exaggerated elegance. "Now you know me. I like steak. I like it well done. I like it big. And I like it with ketchup. But this is something new. It's not steak. It's not chicken. I don't even know what it is. But I like it." At that, one soldier shouted from the back, "Sir, that's supposed to be beef stew." Trump raised his spork like a microphone. "Supposed to be. Supposed to be. That's the key phrase. Nobody really knows, and that's why it's so exciting. Every bite is a surprise. It's like opening a mystery box." The crowd roared. Soldiers laughed until their faces turned red. Then, as if remembering he was on camera, Trump leaned forward and gave a mock-serious review. "Presentation, very good. Smells questionable, but it grows on you. Taste solid. Packaging incredible. Probably stronger than some of our trade deals. Overall, I give this MRE a 10 out of 10. Nobody's ever reviewed it better than me, folks. Nobody." By now, the soldiers were in stitches. The scene looked less like a military cafeteria and more like a late-night comedy show. Trump was eating an MRE, but he was performing at the same time, giving the soldiers a memory they'd never forget. And just when everyone thought he was done, he picked up the pouch again, squinted at it, and said, "But I have one question. How many of these do I have to eat before I get dessert?" The soldiers exploded with laughter once more, some literally crying from how ridiculous it all was. And in that moment, everyone in the room knew. They had just witnessed history. The day Donald Trump tried his very first MRE. If Section 2 was the suspenseful buildup, Section 3 was the victory lap, because once Donald Trump realized he had the entire room of soldiers in the palm of his hand, he didn't hold back. The MRE wasn't just food anymore. It was his prop, his stage, and his audience loved every second of it. Trump leaned forward like a food critic on national TV. He lifted the pouch, squinting at the mushy contents, and began speaking in a booming, dramatic voice. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is nothing short of a culinary masterpiece. The texture, out of this world. The presentation, beautiful. The flavor, well, that's memorable. You may not want to remember it, but it's memorable. The soldiers howled with laughter. Some were leaning on each other, shaking their heads in disbelief at the absurdity of what they were witnessing. Here was a man who had dined in the most luxurious restaurants across the globe, now reviewing an MRE like it was served on a silver platter at Trump Tower. He jabbed the sport back into the pouch and held it up like he was showing off a diamond. And the packaging, folks, let me tell you, this is the strongest packaging I've ever seen. Tougher than steel. You could drop this from Air Force One, and it would survive. Believe me. Maybe we should make our trade deals out of this packaging. The soldiers roared so loudly, a few nearly fell out of their chairs. Some banged the tables with their fists, as if cheering at a comedy show. Then came dessert. Trump rummaged through the brown bag until he found a small, sealed cookie. He held it up high, like he'd just uncovered hidden treasure. This is the prize. This is why America wins wars. Because when you give a soldier a cookie like this, individually wrapped, very classy, they will fight with more heart, more passion, and more courage than ever before. The room went wild. Some soldiers clapped. Others doubled over with laughter. A few even shouted back jokes of their own. Careful, sir. That cookie's been in storage since the 90s. Don't eat it too fast. It's our secret weapon. Trump laughed, breaking character for a moment, then snapped right back into his mock review mode. He tore open the cookie wrapper with a dramatic flair and took a small bite. His eyes widened, and he held up a finger. Okay, now this is a deal closer. This is what I'm talking about. Forget the beef stew. Forget the mystery meat. This is the future of America. Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. The laughter reached a new level. Some of the soldiers were literally wiping tears from their faces. The energy in the room felt less like a military cafeteria and more like a late-night comedy club. And Trump knew it. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said, almost smugly, "You know, I could open a restaurant with this. We'll call it Trump's Tactical Dining. Very exclusive. Very elite. You have to wear camouflage to get in." The soldiers clapped and cheered again, feeding off the performance. He was joking, exaggerating, poking fun, but in a way that made everyone feel included in the moment. At one point, Trump grabbed the tiny packet of instant coffee that came with the MRE and held it up with mock reverence. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most powerful item in the bag. Stronger than Red Bull. Stronger than anything. One sip of this, and you'll be awake for 3 days straight. Maybe even 4. Some of our politicians should drink this. They'd finally stay awake in meetings. The laughter was deafening. Soldiers were literally clutching their stomachs. Someone shouted, 10 out of 10 review, sir. And Trump quickly replied, 11 out of 10. Nobody reviews better than me. Nobody. The jokes just kept flowing. Every packet he pulled out became a punchline. The salt packet? This is probably worth more than some currencies. The gum? It's good gum, but we'll make it bigger, stronger gum. The best gum. Even the little napkin became part of the routine. Look at this napkin. One ply, very thin, very modest. But it gets the job done. Just like the American soldier. And that last line hit differently. The laughter didn't stop, but you could feel something shift in the room. Because beneath the jokes and the playful performance, there was a genuine respect shining through. Trump was making fun of the food, yes, but he wasn't mocking the soldiers. If anything, he was honoring them by sharing in their reality, if only for a meal. By the time he set the sport down, the soldiers weren't just entertained. They were bonded. Everyone in the room felt like they had just shared in something truly unique. A mix of comedy, camaraderie, and connection. And the best part? Trump wasn't even halfway done. The laughter finally began to settle, though not completely. Every few seconds, someone in the back would still chuckle at Trump's over-the-top cookie review. But then, as he set the wrapper down and leaned back in his chair, the room shifted. His voice dropped just a little. His tone, usually playful and booming, carried something different now. "You know," he said, holding the half-empty MRE pouch in his hand, "I joke about this meal. I make fun of the beef stew, the cookie, the packaging. But the truth is, this little bag, it represents something far bigger than just food." The soldiers straightened a little. Some leaned forward. Phones that had been recording now stayed steady, as if everyone knew what was coming was worth capturing. Trump continued, pointing at the pouch. "This is what you men and women live on. When you're in the desert, when you're in the rain, when you're thousands of miles from home, you don't get a chef. You don't get fine dining. You get this. And you take it without complaint. You eat it, you move on, and you do your job." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. A few soldiers nodded. Others tapped the table softly. "You know," Trump went on, "I've sat at tables with kings and presidents. I've eaten meals that cost more than some people's cars. But those meals don't matter. They don't mean anything compared to this. Because this meal, this simple little package, is about sacrifice. It's about endurance. It's about the reality of what you all face, day in and day out." For a moment, the room grew quiet. The jokes faded into reflection. Some of the soldiers exchanged looks with each other, because they knew he wasn't wrong. Every service member had a memory tied to an MRE, sitting in a dusty tent, crouched in the mud, or huddled under a poncho in the rain. It wasn't about the taste. It was about surviving another day, keeping their strength, and pushing forward. Trump held the pouch higher. "When I taste this, I don't just taste food. I taste the grit of the soldier who eats it while standing guard. I taste the determination of the Marine on patrol. I taste the sacrifice of the pilot who's flown missions all night and grabs one of these before heading back out. That's what this is. It's not just a meal, it's a symbol." One soldier near the front, who had been laughing earlier, suddenly sat straighter, his jaw tight. Another soldier lowered her eyes, clearly holding back emotion. Trump's tone grew even more serious. "And that's why I respect it. Because it shows me what you all give up, what you all go through. It shows me that freedom is not served on a silver platter. It comes in a pouch, in the rain, in the mud, in the toughest places on earth. And you all accept that without hesitation. That is true courage." The silence was heavy now, not uncomfortable, but powerful. A few soldiers nodded deeply. One or two even wiped at their eyes. The same people who were doubled over with laughter minutes ago were now feeling something much stronger. Then, just as the weight of the moment seemed to peak, Trump leaned forward, gave a little grin, and added, "Of course, if they put ketchup in here, it'd be perfect. Really perfect." The room broke again, laughter exploding out of the silence like a release valve. Soldiers clapped, cheered, and shook their heads. The perfect balance of humor and heart had landed, because that was the magic of the moment. Trump had gone from cracking jokes about mystery meat to acknowledging the grit, sacrifice, and humanity behind it all. And the soldiers weren't just entertained anymore. They felt seen. This wasn't about whether the food was good or bad. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't even about Trump himself. It was about connection, the simple truth that one small, humble meal carried the weight of thousands of untold stories. And in that cafeteria, for those few minutes, everyone shared the same story. The room had already been on a roller coaster, roaring laughter, quiet reflection, then laughter again. But now, as Trump set down the pouch and looked around at the soldiers, it felt like everyone was waiting for one last punch. And of course, he didn't disappoint. Trump tapped the spork against the table, leaned in, and said with mock seriousness, "Now, I've given this MRE a 10 out of 10, but I've got a very big offer for you. A tremendous deal. Who wants to trade me? I'll give you half a Trump steak, prime cut, the best steak, believe me, for one more of these cookies." The cafeteria exploded. Soldiers clapped, stomped their boots on the floor, and shouted back like they were at an auction. "I've got 2 cookies, sir," one soldier yelled. "Sir, "I'll throw in a powdered drink mix," another shouted. Someone in the back called out, "We want the steak first, then we'll talk." Trump grinned like he was hosting his own game show. He waved his hand and pointed to the crowd. "You see, this is why America wins. We negotiate. We make deals, even in the cafeteria." The laughter was thunderous. Some soldiers were doubled over, holding their stomachs. Others wiped their eyes, caught somewhere between crying from the humor and from the emotional weight of the moment. Trump picked up the little packet of crackers and raised it in the air like it was a golden bar. "This, my friends, is currency. Forget the dollar, forget the euro. Out here, this cracker is the most valuable thing in the world. You could buy a car with this cracker." "Not if it's stale, sir," someone shouted back. "It's a very strong cracker." Trump fired back instantly. "Stronger than some of our politicians. Believe me." The room erupted again. It wasn't just laughter now. It was the kind of uncontrollable laughter that had soldiers clutching each other's shoulders, shaking their heads, and gasping for breath. But amid the comedy, something deeper was happening. You could see it in the way soldiers smiled at each other, in the way their laughter carried not just amusement but relief. For a few minutes, the stress, the pressure, and the grind of military life had lifted. They weren't just soldiers, they were people, sharing a moment of pure joy. Trump leaned back, folded his arms, and gave the room a nod. "You know, I've been in a lot of places. I've seen a lot of things. But this right here, this is special. Because it's not about the meal. It's about the people. You laugh together. You fight together. You serve together. And that's why this country is the greatest in the world." The soldiers clapped, not the roaring, comedic clapping from before, but a steady, respectful applause. It was clear they felt the weight of his words. But Trump wasn't about to let the mood stay too heavy for too long. He picked up the leftover MRE pouch, gave it one last dramatic sniff, and said, "Although I still don't know if this was beef, chicken, or maybe alien food. But whatever it was, it worked. I'm still alive." The room exploded once again. The applause turned back into cheers, whistles, and laughter so loud it bounced off the walls. And that's what made the moment unforgettable. Not because Donald Trump had eaten an MRE, not because he had joked about cookies, crackers, or ketchup, but because in that small cafeteria, surrounded by men and women who live on those meals every day, there was laughter, real laughter, the kind that makes your sides hurt. And there were tears. Tears from joy, tears from pride, and tears from the reminder that even in the toughest of jobs, even with the simplest of meals, humanity shines through. When the laughter finally died down, soldiers went back to their trays, some still shaking their heads in disbelief. Trump stood, shook hands, clapped shoulders, and left them with one last line that summed up the entire day. "You folks are the strongest people in the world. And if you can eat this every day and still smile, you can do anything." The soldiers gave one final cheer, and just like that, the moment became legend, a story they would tell for years. The day a former president sat down, ate an MRE, and turned a simple meal into a memory filled with laughter, pride, and a few well-earned tears. And that's the story of the day Donald Trump tried a military meal and left a room full of soldiers laughing and crying at the same time. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell, because we've got even more wild, surprising stories coming your way. Now, I've got a question for you. Would you be brave enough to try a military MRE? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading them.